Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Urbana Community Development Commission. This is a regular meeting of the Commission, and we have an agenda for this evening's meeting. First on our agenda is call to order, so meeting is now in order. Next.
Excuse me, we have the public hearing.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yes. First on our agenda, we have a public hearing. And let me say that the purpose of the public hearing is to provide an opportunity for the public to provide input and comments regarding the proposed City of Urbana and Urbana Home Consortium Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2013 and 14. Notice of this public hearing was published on Monday, February 25th, 2013, on the City of Urbana website, www.urbanaillinois.us, per procedures stated in the fiscal 2010-14 consolidated plan regarding citizen participation. I now declare this public hearing open. If anyone desires to express their views regarding the proposed annual action plan, please come forward and be recognized. We have one person present for our hearing. Do you have something for the public hearing? Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. Seeing that there are no further comments or no comments for our public hearing, I now declare the public hearing closed. Okay, with that, we'll proceed to our regular meeting. Okay, I now call the meeting, the Urbana Community Development Commission meeting, to order. Next on our agenda is roll call. So,
Fred Cobb.
Here.
Janice Bankston.
Here.
Chris Diana. George Francis.
Here.
Gregory Hayes.
Here.
Jerry Moreland.
Here.
Brad Roof.
Here.
And Heinz Silvis.
Here.
Thank you.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, next is approval of the minutes. I'll entertain motion for approval or modification of the minutes for February 26, 2013, which was our regular meeting. And I'll give us a couple of minutes to go over those minutes. I think we've allowed sufficient time to review the minutes. I'll entertain a motion for approval or modification of those minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
Okay, I have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Ayes have it. Minutes are approved as written. Okay, next we have petition and communications. This is a portion of the meeting where those in the audience. Thank you. This is the portion of the meeting called Petitions and Communications. This is a portion of the meeting where those in the audience, if you have something that you'd like to present to the commission that's not on our agenda, now is the time to come forward. Anyone? Okay, with that, we'll move on to staff report.
Okay, first thing is the staff briefing that you all received in your packet. I won't go over this. It just shows what everybody has been doing over the last month. And secondly, I had emailed at the last meeting, several commissioners were interested in city properties that we had purchased in the history. So Randy and we worked on getting a list, and we sent it out. But I also put a hard copy in case you were unable to open up or to see the email or had missed that. There's a hard copy for you showing a history of different properties that we have purchased over the years. And lastly, we wanted to get some feedback regarding hard copies of packets versus electronic copies only. We were wondering if everyone still wanted, in addition to the hard copies, the email that we send out, or would electronic copies be suffice for you? We just thought, however you would like that. If you still want hard copies, or if just sending the link with the electronic version was enough.
Well,
Because some other commissions, they don't, and some council members, they don't like hard copies of the packets. They just, like the electronic. So we thought we would ask and give you guys a choice if you wanted that, or if you wanted to just keep it as the hard copy.
Is there wireless access to be able to use the internet during
Yes.
the meeting?
Mm-hmm.
well, yes, George.
So does that mean we could bring our computers to the meeting?
Yes, council members, they do that. They bring their little laptops, and we just thought that, offer that to you if you would, prefer just to have it electronically. If you still want a hard copy, we can do that too, but
Just give us a ballpark figure. How much money you'd be saving if you don't print up the stuff and send it out?
It probably depends on how many memos we're sending out that time around.
Yeah.
I suppose they could be $5 or $6 a piece sometimes if we have a heavier packet, but it's based on weight, so it goes to the regular U.S. Postal Service. But I guess it's also to conserve paper as well, consideration for the environment. Another option would be to, if you were comfortable looking at reviewing the materials online, over the weekend, but, prior to the meeting, we could have a hard copy available for you at the meeting if you're more comfortable with that. So we just kind of wanted to put the word out that there are other options. We don't have to keep the status quo. If commissioners have strong feelings about saving the environment, that sort of thing, we just wanted to make it an option for this commission as well, since other commissioners, different boards have raised the issue.
$20 worth of mail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Just for this thin one.
I know there was a packet recently. It was, I think, about $5 times 8. I think so. It would have been like, $40.
It's fine with me to do it electronically as long as you warn us so that I bring my computer.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the idea of a hard copy here.
Okay.
Yeah, I prefer hard copy because I'm not always around the computer when I'm reading.
Okay. You like a hard copy? So you want us to send them to you then through the mail, give you so you'll have it to, or do you just want
Well,
Or is it
could
okay
you
to have
just do it for the
or is it okay to
individual, according to individual preference?
We could.
Yeah.
Yeah, how about at the end of the meeting, I'll just take tabs from everyone, see what your preference is, and we'll move forward that way for the next meeting. And I'll email you a reminder, that things might have changed, just so you recall a month from now that, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to get one in the mail, and to look more closely at your email version. So, thank you.
Will the electronic ones be posted to the city website?
Yes.
And when will they be posted? Before a meeting?
We always post them Friday. That's when we send out the packet. So as we're sending it out, it's also being posted online that Friday afternoon. So I suppose if you
So I
refer
would.
to the internet, the one on the internet, you would get it sooner.
Is there any way you could post that sooner? Because I have had problems with the city website over the weekend for various reasons. Have you noticed that? Like sometimes when
No.
you go to over the weekend, like you can't access some of that stuff, and then on Monday it's fixed, so somebody shows up and fixes it, obviously.
Go ahead.
If someone's wanting an electronic copy, we could email you directly the PDF file, and then you would have it directly. We could send that out on Friday, and like Jen said, afterwards we could find out who's interested in receiving it totally electronically, and
Yeah.
we could do that.
Would be preloaded, you wouldn't have to bother with.
Yes, and then you'd get that on Friday. I think the mail, you get it probably on Saturday, so you'd have the email on Friday with the PDF. And so then so it would actually, right, with no more Saturday mail, this would be a good way. But if you do want a hard copy here for you or mailed to you, that will still be something that we provide, or we will make sure that you get that in enough time if you would like to have that.
Okay.
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 Thank
So
you.
I had some follow-up questions, I guess, based on the
Staff report.
the staff report. So in the inventory sheet, it looks like, if I read this correctly, we have 5 lots, Chodo lots in inventory, and then we have 2 lots that are for special projects or bigger projects. Am I understanding this list correctly? Because one of them's the Kerr Avenue project, which is a bigger, larger scope project that we don't really know what's going to happen yet, but that's what that's being reserved for, correct?
Well, with Kurtz, we're waiting for Brinshaw, who won the RFP, to get low-income housing tax credits through IDA in order then to build affordable housing on there. So, and we're not sure when that will happen. IDA's indicated that several projects have to be completed, Hamilton
Sure.
on the Park and others before that'll happen. So,
And then for 1603 Washington, that's a larger lot that isn't a typical like Habitat or Homestead lot, correct?
right, I think it originally was an Urban League lot, and they were going to build like 4 units there, and then, of course, then they went under, and we found out about it being available through the neighborhood. And so right now, it's being used, part of it as a community garden. A neighborhood group is leasing it from us, but eventually it'll be also for affordable housing down the road. Anytime that we purchase a lot through our property acquisition, the end result eventually will be affordable housing, either to a Chodo or nonprofit, but that's the end result that we look for when we purchase a lot with our property acquisition.
Did that acquisition come through the commission, that one?
1603?
Yeah. Do you remember? I don't remember that one.
I don't think so. I think what we had to do, it was an online sale, and so we had to quickly jump on it so we wouldn't lose it. And it was a good deal for the amount that they were selling it for that big lot. So, so yeah, we had to quickly jump on it, register, go through certain hoops, and so in order to not lose it, we had to jump right on it.
Okay. So then, and then am I correct in saying though that, because the ones that through the description it says full lot to be marketed to Chodo, it looks like there's 5 of those on this list that are currently in inventory. I guess
Yes,
the,
at
the,
least
the reason,
5.
yeah, the reason. I guess my question then to you guys or to the commission is, because we had talked about wanting to understand what our inventory levels would be, given that we had taken some of our property acquisition funds and put it towards a different project. So it was kind of trying to get an idea of, is our inventory level where we want it? Do we need to get it higher? Can we, do we need to replenish those property acquisition funds at some sort of rate to make sure that we can maintain an inventory level? So did you guys think about that at all, as what the goal is? Or like what habitat is going to need moving forward and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Neighborhood Alliance, which is the Chodo for Habitat,
Mm-hmm.
I think they have their allotment for the next year, I think. So they won't be needing any more lots probably for a while, because they build like 4 a year, and so
Mhm.
we just transferred a few lots to them. So
Yeah, I remember her mentioning 4. So
Mhm.
it seemed like the following year they'd take this 5 down to 1. Then basically, right?
Well, but we're always looking. I mean, we keep an eye out for property that need to be demolished. They have items on there that need to be demolished. So our goal is to always look for properties that are available at a good price for us, so that we can add that to our inventory. So even if it looks like it's going down, we are continually looking, and may have the lead on of a couple other ones coming up. So we're always adding to our lot list.
Do you have an idea of what you would like this inventory to be maintained at any given fiscal year?
I don't think that anywhere we have it set that we have to have a minimum number of lots on our inventory. It's more of kind of a revolving inventory. We'll get lots, we'll clear them, or they're empty lots. Then we give them to one of our Chodos, Habitat, or Neighborhood Alliance. Deed them over, and then we see other ones that are available. So Randy's always on the lookout as well. So I think I see it more of as a revolving versus having a stationary number of lots in our inventory.
Yeah, I understand that. It seems like if we actually if Neighborhood Alliance is a good Chodo, which we hope they're going to be, they're going to be wanting to do a certain level of business, I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have lots to deed over to them, we could be the bottleneck,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, so far we've had enough lots. We haven't had any problem with any of their people wanting any lots.
Mhm.
So, and they're, of course, it's countywide, so they could go outside the city, or they could go to Champaign as well. And I think they do try to do a variety. So, so I think that our inventory list is fine, and like I said, we'll keep looking for lots as they become available to add to the list. So some will go out, some will come in. So.
Okay. And then I have one other follow-up question from the last meeting. So I guess what I would like to see maybe on the staff report is as a line item for the discussion on that mechanism that we talked about. So in the future, when the commission votes a certain way, and we talked about maybe highlighting that at the council level, and we, maybe proposing some sort of mechanism to make sure that gets highlighted. And you guys said that you would think about that and how that would happen. So is there any update on that?
We're still
Yeah, that-
looking at that.
Yeah, that would come under old business.
Old business?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking about that, too. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. That's fine. But yeah, I guess I'd like to see kind of like a standing update on that.
Okay, any other questions on staff report? If not, we can go ahead and move to old business. Now, we have one item under old business, which is a resolution approving the City of Urbana and Urbana Home Consortium Champaign/Urbana/Champaign County Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2013 to 14. However, there were some hanging issues, which I would consider old business from our last meeting. And I was wondering if you had any comments on issues that were raised at our February meeting. We were talking about townhomes and information that the commission did not have, so that we could make an informed decision on that, on a variety of things. But does staff have anything, feedback from our the issues raised at our last meeting? And also what Brad mentioned, a way to present things to City Council, or a mechanism where we would get proper recognition. We meaning Community Development Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, in regards to not getting all of the information that council did, I think in the future one way is that we can, because a lot of what took place happened in December, which was when there was no meeting. And if we'd had a meeting, I think all that information would have probably come out, so of what was going on. So in the future, if there's a problem or if there's something that has come up that needs to be discussed, we can either try to schedule a special meeting or possibly at least send an email out saying this is what's going on, in lieu of there not being a meeting, keeping so that you're informed of what's going on. Those are some possibilities. Staff may have some other suggestions as well.
I think the commission had, and Ms. Tyler had suggested perhaps bolding some of, the vote of the CD Commission. And I think that's something that we'd be perfectly willing to do if the commission agrees that that is sufficient. If there's something more, I think we would need to know it to make sure that we're kind of on the same page. So if we were to highlight, I always note in my memos, what the CD Commissioner's vote was at the end. CD staff and CD Commission recommended unanimously, etc. Or I will say the vote if it was not unanimous. But I don't bold it. So I can bold it, but I'm wondering if, now that we've all had time to kind of think and process, are there other things that the commission came up with? I guess I'm almost turning it back on you. Just to make sure, we don't want to do things and then, come back next month and it was, unsatisfactory. So.
I guess the way that I think about it is, because I watch when you guys present to council after our meetings, and you guys do sit down and you present, you kind of almost do like, a summary of the memo, and you're there to field questions immediately. And I guess one of the things that I think I would like to see is for you to highlight it in that verbal presentation to council to say, as you might be, I'd like to, bring attention that the commission did vote no on this, and, we do have a different recommendation, and maybe go into the reasons that we cited, maybe make sure to draw attention to our minutes from the meeting, and maybe present our reasons for why we voted something. And maybe as a commission, if we do vote no, maybe we do need to fill out some very concise points of why that vote happened. And then you could present that to the council at the same time, because like we said, it is advisory, so you would just basically be communicating our sentiments in a more verbal manner, as opposed to it just being buried in a big packet.
Okay, that's certainly something that we can do.
Because, I think as the commission, then in addition to just voting no, maybe we need to also give you guys some sort of concise reason as to why, why that vote exists.
Yeah, I think it's hard when you're working with this many people, for one individual to write out a statement. The rest of the commission would probably want to review it to make sure that that's really, the general consensus of the commission. So I think if the commission is in agreement, I think the best way to do it would be to incorporate it into the motion if possible, stating a reason there, or even, coming to the meeting itself. But incorporating some sort of language into your motion, if you are, forwarding a motion to City Council with a recommendation for disapproval, for the reason that, and then state it. So that way the other commissioners know exactly what's going to be said. It'll be written in the minutes that way. It'll be, presented to council that way.
Mm-hmm.
That might be one way to do it, but it would probably take a lot of discussion to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and that vote would signify some sort of consensus.
Okay. Everyone comfortable with that,
Yeah, I
commissioners?
agree with them.
Yeah, including it in the motion, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. And, okay. Whatever happened regarding Urbana Townhomes, the money for the, the lighting of the path, and any further developments on those things?
The Census Tract 53 streetlights, which is what we're putting our CDBG money into, that project is moving forward. They have put out a bid for it. They gave a notice of award. We'll be having a pre-construction conference in the next couple of weeks with the winner of the bid. And then the Lenore Adams multi-use path, that is supposed to be on schedule. I have contacted Public Works to find out where that's at, because I think there may be delay because of the weather. So we don't know for sure if that started yet. And as far as the demolition of Urbana Townhomes, I am not really, not involved with that. That building safety is the one who has put out, I think, a bid for the demolition. But honestly, I'm not sure about that, since it's not really part of grants with that.
Well, what we were concerned with was about the money that was going to finance that is part of.
That is going to be with city general funds, or Public
There's gonna
Works.
be a replacement kind of thing that.
Yeah, basically, we're putting our money into a project that was already listed in the AAP. So, as a result, now the city general funds, and there's also Public Works capital improvement. So they're using those funds for the demolition, and our money is not involved in that at all.
Okay, so they did listen to what we had to say, what the commission had to say about that? Okay.
I think it was all done by the time.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to our main item here, which is the annual action plan. And someone want to take that up right now?
Sure. Basically, it's still in draft form. We got a little bit more direction from HUD, from their website, and there was also a conference call with sequestration stakeholders with the HUD's deputy secretary. And so now they're talking about a 5% cut instead of the 8.2. Basically, the numbers in here show the 5% instead of the 8.2. But we are, other than that, some of the numbers will probably change in the annual action plan to reflect that. And we are working with our finance department to work on the budget here with the annual action plan, having found out that there may be this less of a cut.
Okay, I was wondering if this 5% going to be 5% across the board, or some things getting more than 5%, some things less than 5%?
Well, from all indications so far that I've seen on HUD's website and from the phone call, that it's 5% across the board, CDBG and home. So like I said, it's due to HUD mid-May. So we, part of why we had also brought this was to get, input from you guys on the AAP. But we'll also be, like I said, in light of less of a reduction, we'll be going through the numbers and making sure that we have enough for administration and projects. So.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any opinions or views you'd like to express regarding the annual action plan? Or any thoughts about this 5%? But let's see, if staff is going to be reworking all of this, whatever we talk about now might be reworked as well. Is that correct? If we suggest something, because you have to rework it.
But it's going to be 5%.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
pretty flat.
is it?
Okay, that's what I was trying to.
It's really a
Yeah.
difference of 3.8%, right? In terms of, like, you presented a budget that was
8.2%.
8.2% reduction. Now it's
And-
only a 5%, so we're talking about 3.2.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you just go back to the start? Get rid of the 8.2. It's the 5%.
Well, what I've been doing is I did some worksheets that had the 8.2% and then 5% and doing comparisons to see where we could increase anywhere or where we had to decrease. I mean, so I think it's not really going to be final probably. I mean, because we could have this already and then we get something from HUD saying, okay, 5% across the board, but for certain cities, we may do a 6% instead. I mean, so until we get an official word from HUD and a letter stating this is what everybody is getting, it's just an estimate. So, but so what I've been seeing is on their website that is 5%. So that's why we then went with 5% instead of the 8.2. So if you have
Okay.
any suggestions, we can also bring it back
That's what I
and
was
show
thinking.
you that the final.
Yeah, make it
Um,
contingent upon receiving further information.
Mm-hmm. Although I think we do have it. I think, and it says in here that I think it's on council's agenda for like the middle of April to be voted on. But I think last year when it got to that, we actually got more information from HUD. So we ended up taking it later to council.
So Kelly, what you're saying is 5% is the best estimate at this point, and you just want to go forward with 5%, adjust it later if you have to. But
Right.
it looks like that's the best estimate at
That's,
this
yeah,
point in
that's,
time.
that's what, right, yeah, like I said, what I saw on the HUD's website and in this also, this conference call, they were saying 5%.
And I move that we forward it to council with approval with the 5% figure.
There's been a motion to approve this resolution with the 5%, at the 5%, with 5% as the reduction figure. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, any further discussion? I was thinking that the approval should be contingent upon 5%. If it's not 5%, then it would automatically come up for reconsideration.
But aren't we forwarding an estimated amount? So it's implicit that the estimate is not the final, it's an estimate.
The thing
So
is
do we
that,
need
from what my understanding is, that if this is on the agenda for council, and if we send this to them already, that means they're going to take a vote on something that's an estimate. That's something that's not exact. So I think that it would be best that it would be either tabled or contingent upon saying what the actual facts and figures will actually be in the end.
So we could put.
Because we don't want to send something where we have some type of conflict where they don't have the exact figures.
So you're
necessarily.
suggesting the motion be amended to say contingent on the 5%?
Well, Chairman Cobb, he was saying, he was the one that initially said the word to be some type of contingent plan or contingency where we see exactly what happens. But I think the issue can be tabled.
Mhm. We also do have the option that if we use the 5% and it goes to HUD and then HUD comes back and says that it's a different amount, we can amend the annual action plan per our con plan.
Right, well, what I was gonna say is, isn't this have to be submitted in May?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because they aren't changing the deadlines of when the submissions have to be, regardless of whether the numbers are moving around. That's not the way HUD works. So if it needs to go to council and then be to them by May, it really needs to be to council in April. But we do amend the action plan all the time, and if it came back with a different number, then we could amend it accordingly and change the numbers. That would seem logical to me, because they have to have something to submit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think the memo said that as well, that if numbers change after it's submitted, that per our con plan, we can amend it. Yeah, we are always amending. As you can see, we've amended lots of different annual action plans. So we would definitely do that if we needed to.
Okay, well, the situation is, we have a motion and a second on the table. With the resolution standing as it's written here. So, we've had discussion. No
Well,
one was.
Do we have to vote on this one, or can we amend this one?
We have to, pardon?
There
A second.
There was a second.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we do have to vote on it since there was a motion and a second. Therefore,
Unless I want to amend the motion.
pardon?
Unless I want to amend
Right.
the motion.
Right. And I don't see any, I haven't heard anything, any amendment to the motion, so all in favor say aye. Any opposed, no?
No.
Abstain.
Okay, one abstention. And George, you, abstention? Okay. So what do we have, what did you count?
I believe the motion passes because it's 6 yes, 1 no, 2 abstentions.
No, you're not counting, right?
Well, a quorum was 6, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You had 4 yes and 1 no and 2 abstentions.
Yeah, that's 3. Not,
5 yeses, 1 no.
No, I said yes.
Motion fails.
pardon?
I believe the motion fails. Right?
Okay.
Because we needed 6 for it to be a quorum.
No,
No.
you need a quorum to have a meeting.
Oh, sorry.
You need a majority.
The majority passes, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so that.
Does
would-
anybody have the
that-
Roberts Rules app?
So,
I don't know if
and
I
that-
know about it.
in that case, the motion does pass, because we have 3, we have 2 abstentions and 1 no. That leaves 4 yes, which is a majority. Because there's 7 of us.
What, did you vote, Fred?
Yeah.
Then there's 5 yeses.
Did you vote yes?
They're at
Mm.
8.
Yeah,
Let me see, 1, 2, 3.
5 yeses.
4, 5,
1
6,
no,
7.
2 abstentions.
You're right. Well, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next, is there any other old business that we would like to discuss at this moment? If not, let's move to new business. Under new business, we have a resolution evidencing the intention of the city of Urbana, Champaign County, Illinois, to transfer volume cap in connection with private activity bond issues, single-family mortgage revenue bonds, and related matters, private bond cap allocation dash EIEDA Series 2013. Okay.
Okay, basically, we are looking at our private activity bond cap to allocate it to the Eastern Illinois Economic Development Authority again this year. We have received several emails from Mr. David Rosh regarding Illinois Assist, and it has not been running for the last few years. Apparently, they keep working on getting new master servers. So, and because of the non-performance, we decided not to cede it to Illinois Assist. And likewise, I contacted Illinois Housing Development Authority, and they informed staff that they are accepting bond cap, but in the past, they would take our bond cap and they would make it a special program called Assist Urbana, and it would help Urbana residents. And they said that they would take our bond cap, but they would not form any new programs. It would just be incorporated into the programs that they already have. And so in light of that, that's when we decided to cede it to Eastern Illinois Economic Development Authority, because we know that they will be used in the area. And it seems a lot more. I mean, it can be used for multifamily housing and other. And so I have an email into Andrew Hamilton, who is the executive director, to find out, to ensure that they're interested in taking our cap. And I have not heard back from him, but I don't think it'll be a problem. They cover a lot of eastern Illinois counties. So, and I also asked him what are some projects that they are doing in the community. So once I get that information, I can certainly send it on to you in an email letting you know, hey, these are the things that they are doing in the community. I know that the old Howard Johnson over in Champaign, part of the bond cap went for that, and they're working on that. It's for persons with disabilities. So they do definitely in the community. So we thought that this would be good to put it with them again.
Yeah, what is the status of that project? Because remember, we actually had somebody show up to express concern over that.
Yeah. Well, we certainly, let the city of Champaign know about the concerns. It's moving along. I don't know when it's slated to be open, but it's right there by the Housing Authority, and I go there for their monthly board meetings, and so I have seen the progress on it. So, but at this point, I don't know when it'll be open yet. But other than that, I'm not. I don't have any other information on that.
What was the concern? There was was it about the design or the layout of how that was going to be?
It might have been the population, the age that they were going to be serving. I think that may have been the concern with the person, but.
Yeah, I remember that.
But like I said, after we received that information, the person was concerned, we passed that information on. So.
Okay. The way I read this, I thought I saw and hear that if we don't do this, that we may lose some of the funds.
Yeah,
is that accurate?
Yeah, if you don't cede it to a particular entity, the state can take it and add it to their
Give it to
millions.
other cities or something.
So, yeah, to be used anywhere in the state. So that's why we thought allocating it to the Eastern Illinois Economic Development Authority, it would be, definitely would be available for the community to use, and therefore we wouldn't have to worry about the state taking it.
How long do they have to use it before it actually cedes back to the government?
I want to say something like, I'm not sure. Do you happen to know?
I want to say, okay, the process goes like the city of Urbana has to seed it prior to May 1st. That's the state's deadline. If we don't seed it, the state takes our authority. They, are allowed to issue the debt. If then the state puts it into a large pool that is competitive, very competitive, for those bonds. And if the people that those bonds are issued to don't use them, I think they just go away. Because it's not real funding, remember? It's just, it's like the ability to hand out debt. So really it's up to the bond issuer to find investors for these things. So if the funds kind of fall away, I think they just kind of disappear because they never existed in the first place. And that's what I recall. I could always look into it again if the commission wanted further information.
Well, that's kind of just what I was thinking about in terms of like, we're talking about ceding it over to Eastern Illinois entity, but at the same time, like if they don't use it, maybe it would be better off just letting it go to the state where, I don't know if the state ever just loses their ability to issue debt or if they issue it all.
It's my understanding that it's actually very competitive and they always issue that small pot, or I don't know if
This
it's
Eastern
small.
Illinois?
Not Eastern Illinois. No, that would be the state. Eastern Illinois is totally different. They're another
Yeah, I guess what I'm
issuer.
saying is like if like we, if every year, because we don't have a home buyer assist program, if we issue it to this entity and if they don't have the ability to actually issue the debt, but maybe the better choice would be to let it go to the state where they're always allocating it every year. That's my question. So then that's, the follow-up to, what projects are they doing? How much of our bond cap from last year did they utilize? What's the utilization rate?
Well, Jen was saying it could vanish once it goes back to the state.
But I think what she's saying is practically it doesn't at the state
Is that
level.
right?
But that's at the state level. If it's ceded to another issuer, which would be EIEDA, there's probably different rules versus the state's allocation, because it's the issuer that would set up the rules for, like with our bond cap, when we have ceded it to IDA in the past, if Urbana's bond authority wasn't used in that first year, then they would kind of go statewide. But that was the state's policy. I'd have to ask EIEDA, what really happens if it's not used in the Urbana community. Then it goes to the larger pool. And
That
then
would
what
be
happens
something
after
to
that?
follow up on,
Yeah,
actually.
so I can definitely follow up on that for sure.
Are there any other options?
So,
Not that we know of.
Okay.
so is that something that we could come back to the next meeting, or do we have to know in terms of making a decision on this?
The due date is May 1st,
May 1st.
and they're not lenient. It's the state. So the next CD Commission meeting would be at the end of the month, and then we wouldn't have, it has to be ordained or resolved by the city council. So we wouldn't have time from the point of CD Commission to take it to council before it would be due by the state. And usually we have to send it out. We like to send it out, obviously, late April, so we're not pushing up against that deadline.
Yeah, because I think it's an important piece of information to have, because essentially, we're thinking that we're making a better choice by keeping it locally, but if you just put it in this local pot and they can never use it because we don't have the projects and the state could use it, then that actually might be a better choice.
Part of the idea behind EIEDA, though, is to keep it in the central Illinois area.
No, I know what I'm saying, but if it's not being used, then somebody should use it.
But it has been used, because the project that you were referring to earlier was, and I forget the name of it. I can't remember, but it's on the corner of Church.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Church. The Howard Johnson Hotel?
Yes.
In Champaign? That's by
Eden, thank you. Eden Supportive Services,
Mhm.
Supportive Living. So it has been used. That was a big project. So as far as I know, when we've spoken with Andrew Hamilton, they kind of stockpile the community's funds, put it into a project. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen in Urbana, but at least it keeps it in central Illinois versus going to
Sure.
the suburbs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to get a feel for, every year we issue this, it looks like a really large number, right, in terms of this. So we issue this, so are they utilizing 50% of that? So then, the next year, they got 50% from the previous year, we're going to issue 100% this year. I'm just trying to get a feel for their utilization of these bond caps.
Well, I will say that they were very recently formed and up and running. So I believe that last project, the Eden project, kind of wiped them out. They used pretty much they were going around to the cities asking for bond cap in order to meet the finance gap that they needed in order to contribute to the project. So I would say that there is a need based on, what we were told last year. But that is a good question moving forward, and that's why we keep track of these things. That's why we're not ceding our bond cap to the assist program, because it's stalled the last 2 years, and we need to make sure that it's actually going to run, instead of before, we put further debt into it.
Okay, so you'd say it has a good probability.
I would say
And,
it's better for the general area, and
yeah.
probability-wise, they've been successful with the Eden project so far, and that's the
Mhm.
only thing we have to base it off of at this point. And compared to IDA, which will not put the money into our community at all,
Mhm.
and Assist, which has stalled the last 2 years, it seems like the
Mhm.
logical choice between the options that we know that are available at the moment.
Okay, so as a judge would say, it's more likely than not that it'll be used in our area.
Yes.
Mhm. Okay, with that, someone like to make a motion to forward the resolution to City Council for approval?
I move that we forward it as written to City Council for approval.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to forward the resolution to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, next, we have an ordinance approving modifications to the City of Urbana and Urbana Home Consortium fiscal year 2011 to 12 annual action plan down payment program.
I'll let Jen talk about this.
Okay,
So reviewing the home program budget and the progress of our housing rehab program, we had some carryover that was resulting from program income coming in. Every time one of our older housing rehab projects is sold, we have a $12,500 lien on that property. So at the time of transfer, that lien, if it's done through a traditional legal closing, will be returned to the city, and it cycles back into our housing rehab program. So this has happened over the years. I think we got a significant amount so far in the last fiscal year, something to the tune of $37,000. So, and we've been doing, 5, 6, 7 rehabs a year, but we've noticed that we've started falling behind, and we have excess funds that we need to spend. And in looking at some of the need in the area and the phone calls that we're getting, just talking with other lenders in the community, other community entities, we decided that it would be great if the City of Urbana was able to provide some sort of down payment assistance for home ownership projects. We've had a few, Homestead Corporation has had a really hard time finding buyers at their price point. We know that houses are being sold. I acquired some of the MLS data from a local realtor in town, and there were, from what I initially saw, and this is just gleaning first glance, between price points of $61,000 and $88,000, there were 45 properties that were sold just in 2012. So obviously there are low-income buyers that are finding houses that work for them, that are a little lower price on the market, and that aren't restricted to our specific target area. And we thought it would be great if we had some sort of a product that we could offer these folks, to help the most people. We considered a few other things. Acquisition rehabilitation was one of the project proposals that we had in the annual action plan, just a possibility. But with the funding that we had available, which I believe in my memo I stated was around, we need to commit an additional $117,000. We'd be lucky if we were able to complete 3 acquisition rehabs. So in light of that, we wanted to help more people rather than less, make a bigger impact in the community. We created this proposal for a down payment assistance program. I've named it Urbana Dream Down Payment Assistance. That was the best. That was the most creative I could be. If anybody else has suggestions, I'm open. So the amendment itself deals with the fiscal year 2011-2012 annual action plan. In that, there were $27,771 of funds that we left unallocated, and that was towards that list of programs that I mentioned, sort of excess. We didn't really know what we wanted to do with it, but we wanted to leave it open to opportunities. And then we are paring down what was allocated in that year to housing rehab in order to fund this program with a total funding pool of $100,000. So we're estimating that we'd be able to help between 10 and 14 families. We're working out, the bugs of, all the application materials that would be required, who's eligible, who's not. Obviously, we're limited to the low-income household limits that were recently published by HUD. So and I wish I brought them. For a single person on their own, the limit is $40,000. For a family of 2, it's around $45,000. You keep going up. It's, I want to say, around $55,000, $57,000 for a family of 4. Yes. So we expect that we would be able to move this program quickly. I've spoken with some local lenders who have been very encouraging about the program, and I think it will work really well since I believe the City of Champaign just got approved for some state funding for their community. So it'd be nice if Urbana could also help those in need, because that program was restricted to those in Champaign as well as some suburban communities. So there's really nothing, like we just said with the bond cap that we seeded. We don't have Assist Urbana right now. It's not going on. We want to make sure it's going to take off before we seed any further bond cap. So in terms of funds that specifically assist Urbana residents, there isn't anything right now. Buyers would be required to put down $1,000 earnest. We want people to have some sort of investment in their house that they're purchasing, knowing fully well that they are low income and it's hard to scrounge up that extra cash. And they have to be pre-approved for a fixed rate loan by a lender in Champaign County. We wanted to keep it local, and we wanted to kind of protect the buyers and our own investment of home funds by making sure that there isn't if you have variable rates, sometimes loans can get a little messy and people can get behind down the road. And then we will contribute not more than $10,000 per household, or up to 10% of the purchase price. So I'm guessing around, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a house. And the city will match this program the same way that we match our whole house rehab projects. So each project is matched 25% with the city's funds. And I believe that's all. Oh, I should also say that the houses purchased, they don't have to be vacant, which is a difference between our program and the City of Champaign's program. They cannot be rented within the last 6 months of purchasing it. That's sort of one of the more finer parts of the program. But they don't have to be vacant in the sense that nobody's lived in them and they're owner occupied for the last 6 months. So we wanted to make it as least restrictive as possible so that we could actually commit the funds in a timely manner the way that we're hoping to, and have the most impact in other areas of the city that don't always see, our CHOTO assistance, that sort of thing. So I can take questions.
Since you brought up the Champaign participation in the vacant home, why I don't know if this is in order, I guess, Fred, you'd have to decide, but why was Urbana not offered the same opportunity, considering that we have more vacant houses
I
that
noted the
define
same.
vacant? In fact, we're second only to Danville in how many we have.
I noted the same in the News Gazette article I think you're referencing.
Yesterday, yeah.
The part of that, so that was all very secretive. Nobody really knew about it till it hit the ground, and it was all decided on the part of the state. So it wasn't like we could apply for it or even appeal for it, because we didn't know it existed until it hit the ground and was announced on the part of the state of Illinois. It said in that article, and I believe this is true in my discussions with Champaign staff, that they prioritized those communities that they had worked with and had a good track record for the most recent neighborhood stabilization program. Those NSP funds, Champaign did apply for, and they were successful in carrying out that program. It was kind of a difficult program. There was a lot of risk in participating, but Champaign was able to make it work. And I think because of that, they prioritized those communities, which is why Champaign, I believe, was selected. And I also believe that in that News Gazette article, one of the state employees was quoted as saying that they also looked at larger communities. And when you look at the broader scope of Illinois, the city of Urbana has, a population of 45,000? So it would make sense that we were overlooked for that particular, aspect of criteria that they were kind of evaluating. So I'm disappointed myself. That'd be great. We would love to be able to participate, but it was not our decision.
What you said is, the way I read it is that this program is intended for large urban centers. Most of the communities they mentioned are contiguous to Chicago. And Champaign was touted as an exception to this. It wasn't a particularly large city. Nevertheless, it was given this. Now, were you referring to the Garden Hills development in particular? They didn't give any details. What it is that made the state, who in the state that made this decision, by the way? Does anybody know?
I don't know. Does anybody else? Have you heard anything in the news? Actually, I think in the article, Champaign staff didn't really have information about the program
That's right.
either.
It mentioned that the Champaign staff was just as surprised as everybody else.
Yeah, actually, our Libby, our department head, saw that as well, and I've been directed to contact Ida to find out about this program, and to let him know that it's a twin cities, so what affects Champaign can affect us as well. So I wasn't able to get a hold of them today, but I'm going to try to find out somebody in Ida to talk to and find out about
it would
this.
be interesting if we were to use the money that we were talking about right now. If we were to use this, but structure it so that it looks exactly, in other words, put the unoccupied back in as a condition, whether this would help us get this kind of state assistance in the future. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I do. We wanted to make the program as least restrictive as possible. We were focusing more on the home buyer, this isn't restricted to our target area, isn't like a neighborhood project per se, it's more just a citywide program. But we are trying to structure it in a way that fits the Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago's program, which I believe the city of Urbana has applied and received in the past. I would have to actually look into that for the years that we received it, but we're hoping to stretch this program out. So this is almost like a pilot. We're trying it out with our
Okay.
home funds in the hopes that, yes, we could.
But in the direction of the home loan rather than in the direction
Exactly.
of this odd thing. Okay, fair enough. Good.
Why, given the spirit of keeping it as less restrictive as possible, then why are you putting in here that the unit needs to be required to have a city inspection?
Yes, that is actually a home rule. We don't have a choice on that one. And since we can't really put,
A home rule,
the home final rule, that's you've probably seen it in memos 1,000 times, the 24 CFR Part 92. So that's sort of what I refer to as the Bible of the home program. It's all the rules that we have to abide by. The regulations that we have to abide by as part of the home program. So if we're doing a home buyer project, the unit has to be up to code within 6 months.
city
It's a little
code?
local code, yes.
Local code.
So if we were in the county and there was no local code like the city has, then we would just have to abide by whatever the state code is. But since we do have our local code, HUD requires us to abide by that. Just because they want standard housing, not substandard. They don't want our program to be more lenient than other housing restrictions that we place on everyone in the city. And we could say, all right, you have to get it up to code within 6 months, but that is a huge risk if the home buyer moves in and then doesn't do the work. So it's a matter of we need to make sure the property is up to code on the front end, and the seller and the buyer are willing to work together and negotiate on, okay, what the seller's willing to pay for, or what the buyer's willing to, pay for to get it done before they go to closing. Because otherwise, we really will have no ability to meet that requirement and show to HUD that, we in good faith tried to meet this regulation.
And the requirement that the house not be rented at the time, is that also part of the HUD requirements?
Yes, it is. If it were to be rented within that 6 months, we would have to relocate the person that was renting. So it has to deal with not wanting to displace one family in order to provide affordable housing for another. So that's the idea behind HUD's policy on that.
Okay.
Just a question on, and I know from looking at this before that I think it's well set up and it can be a very good program. In looking kind of a second time at the section regarding code and so forth, I would say I really wasn't aware of that previous factor that you had on the number of homes in that price range. I would caution you that a substantial amount, probably the majority of those homes, were sold as is to investors. They would never have qualified for any homeowner or any conventional mortgage, and certainly not any government-backed mortgage. So there may have been 20 of those homes that would have fallen in a category where they could have done this. But the additional caution would be all of those homes would probably have been considered to match code based on what a home inspector calls code, which is the prevailing code at the time the house was built or the work was done. None of them would pass current code.
Yeah.
And so, this doesn't say current code, but that would just be my caution that if you go down the road of current code of those number of houses you quoted, you would probably be at zero.
Yeah, and we did do this with the American Dream Down Payment Initiative program. So however, it was able to work back then, that's what we're going to maintain.
Yeah, that would be good. That would work fine. Otherwise, sometimes it gets caught up in everything has to be like it was a new house, and no seller is going to do that, and it's never going to happen. So, yeah.
And then in your memo, it said the loan would be, I'm assuming it's forgiven after the family had maintained its units?
Yes, so it has a 5-year affordability period. on it,
Okay.
and the family has to maintain it as their principal residence for that 5 years. If they sell beforehand, I forgot my handout. We will be applying, it's described in our consolidated plan, the recapture provision. So basically, the percentage that was originally invested by the home buyer versus the percentage or the ratio of the initial investment by the home grant. We share that proration down the road if there are funds, if there's a profit from the sale. Like 3 years into the affordability period, if they decide to sell and they're underwater, we can't collect a thing back because there's no profit, to, for us to collect back. However, if, do you have it? No, it's okay. We'll just leave it over. Thanks. Versus if they are making a profit, we are able to collect back our initial investment. Also, basically the home buyer is not able to make a profit off of what was the home funds to begin with. So they can't lose any funds that they didn't put into it initially, other than, if they do go underwater, it was their own risk. But they can't lose, we can't go into their equity to claim back our investment.
Mm-hmm. And what would you estimate, when I look at the fiscal impacts, obviously there's an impact to somebody has to administrate it in the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is the administrative costs associated with this new program?
Since they have to be pre-approved by a lender, they've already been handing out all their financial information to the banks. They've been pre-approved. So a lot of times with our ADDI grants, it was easier to move things along quickly because they already knew what kind of financial information we were looking for because the bank had asked for the same thing. So it is almost like a partnership collaboration in that sense. But most of the administrative load will fall on me, yours truly, in terms of running the program, marketing it, keeping the lenders up to date on our application process, doing the income verifications. That will probably be Randy and myself. But yes, for the most part, it's just our office doing it.
Yep. Thank you. And with that, I'll entertain a motion for, yes.
I so move.
Okay, I'll entertain a second. Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to forward the ordinance approving this action to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Any further comment? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Okay, next is a resolution amending Housing Rehabilitation Program operational guidelines as originally authorized by Resolution Number 2010-04-010R.
And I'll have Jen talk about this one as well.
Okay.
Okay, so in speaking with our housing rehab coordinator, I'm a little more ingrained in the process now. I never really went on, home visits, took applications. It's been a very fun learning process. It's actually kind of nice to go out in the community and meet some of the faces of the people that we serve on a regular basis. And in taking some of the applications for the housing rehab grants, I noticed that a lot of folks who are in between 50 and 80% aren't really willing to move forward with the housing rehab program because they have to go seek private financing. As soon as they hear that piece, they walk away. They don't want to participate anymore, either because they don't have the greatest credit or they're just uncomfortable with the idea of taking out a $12,500 loan. So, and maybe I should explain really quickly, just in case it's been a while since we've talked about it. We have our housing rehab set up so that there are grant deferred loans and grant installment loans. If you are below 50% of the median family income, you qualify for a grant deferred loan. That means that the city will put in a $12,500 grant, and then we will also provide a deferred loan of $12,500. So we basically match it for you in a loan that is, a lien that's placed on your property, and when you go to sell your house, that's when we collect our investment back. Versus those who are between 50 and 80% of the median family income, we will give them that $12,500 grant like we do the others, but we tell them that we're not going to give you the loan, the financing for the second half of the project. You need to go seek private financing yourself. And I think the program manual originally was designed to sort of benefit, you know, the greatest need. There were a lot of people who were requesting this program. There was a high demand for it, and it was working very well. And I had kind of mentioned that we are falling behind before on our housing rehabs, just trying to keep up with them. And not a lot of grant installment loan opportunities come up. And it seems that we have the funding to allow everybody to get access to that deferred loan that the city offers for those at or below 50%. So, you know, staff discussed it. I talked about it with our housing rehab coordinator, and he agreed that that would be great, you know, if we could serve every low-income person the same way equally, that they could all access that same opportunity of having the grant deferred loan instead of having to get private financing, which actually may free up some other homeowners if they do have money that they want to do extra things with. A lot of homeowners request a lot of things on their wish list. We have to make the house up to code when we go in there and we do a whole house rehab. But some homeowners say, oh, I would really love to have a second bathroom or something. Maybe we can't do that, but if they don't have to take out the financing for 12.5, they might actually be able to do some of those other dream projects on their wish list. Anyway, so just sort of in an effort to make it as equal as possible for all eligible low-income households, it made sense to amend the housing program manual basically to eliminate Section 5.0, which is that grant installment loan program, and just stick with our grant deferred loan program and offer that to anybody who's at or below 80% of the median family income.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we forward the motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to forward the resolution to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Is there a second? And we have a second. We had 2 seconds.
No, I had already seconded it.
Okay, any further comment? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Okay, our final item of new business is the CDBG Public Service funding priorities as part of the Consolidated Social Service Funding Pool.
And Janelle will be
Janelle?
speaking on this.
Okay.
So we have currently begun our consolidated social service funding process for fiscal year 2013-2014, and a portion of our community development block grant funds are utilized to make up the larger pool of money that's roughly about $300,000. Again, we're estimating that we will contribute about $5,000 of our public service funds towards the larger pool of money. What we are coming to you for is to assist in setting the priorities for the funds that we will utilize, that $5,000, and what agencies will get those. In the past, a variety of things in your memo on page 2, different things that are eligible to be considered for priorities are affordable housing, public housing, homelessness, lead-based paint, seniors and youth, service and training for low to moderate income persons, infrastructure, and special needs populations. For the fiscal year that we're currently in, 12-13, the priorities were homelessness, seniors and youth, as well as special needs populations. And from that, we did fund 3 agencies with the funding that we receive. The Champaign County Regional Planning Commission, their Senior Services Program, Community Elements, their Roundhouse Youth Shelter. The Senior Services Program met our senior need, as well as low-income populations are always served with any of the agencies that are funded. The Roundhouse Youth Shelter, which Ms. Sheila Ferguson is the Executive Director for Community Elements, is out in the audience. That youth shelter takes care of the youth piece as well as homelessness. And the Greater Community Age Project fit into the category of our special needs population. So what we would like to see is what you would like to do for this upcoming fiscal year, the priorities that would best fit Another reason those three were chosen is because some of the other priorities we meet in other ways. The affordable housing, we do a lot of different projects that help assist with that. Infrastructure, we do in another way with some public service dollars. Public housing is something that we can do, but it's not our greatest need in our community as far as something that we have to do with the block grant funds that we have. But certainly open it up for discussion and see if you have interest in changing those priorities, or if there is another area that you would like for us to focus that $5,000 portion of the consolidated social service funding pool.
Anyone? I was wondering, in looking at this, if there was any way any of these funds could help with the sewer problem that they're having in the neighborhood.
With that, we do have, through our rehabilitation programs, we have our access grants and our emergency grants. Those would be grants that if those residents as an individual homeowner or household would like to apply for a grant and they meet the qualifications, it is possible that those funds can be utilized to assist them in that way. It would be done on an individual basis, just as they would qualify for any of the other programs as we do with our other homeowners. I think part of the concern with the sewer issue is about the dollar amount. With our senior service repair, it is limited to $1,000 for the fiscal year for that family or that household. The access grant or emergency grants are limited, and the access grant is specifically really for accessibility purposes, ramps, modifying bathrooms. So the emergency grant is also capped at $5,000. I do believe that maybe Public Works and the City Council may be providing, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I think that
Are they
they
coming up?
are looking at increasing the amount of reimbursement for, I think, I'm not sure what the percentage is. I know that they've been discussing that, so that, because there is a program through Public Works that someone can access and request reimbursement back. So I know Public Works is working with council on increasing that amount to help the neighborhood.
Okay. Well, it looks like last year's priorities should still be priorities to me. However, I don't want to sway anyone unduly. So can we hear from other commissioners? Do you have other ideas?
Could you repeat? So last year's, the ones in the top line, affordable housing, lead-based paint, and infrastructure, and public, oh, I see. Those were last year's priorities?
No, bottom of the second paragraph, page 2.
Right, or if you
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at the paragraph just above options, it actually, that's where it tells you what the top two paragraphs are. So number 1 priority was youth and seniors, 2 was homelessness, and 3 was special needs populations. And then the paragraph below it goes into what agencies specifically met those categories. So those were the 3 areas that we concentrated our funds on. And just to make a quick note, something I didn't mention in my earlier presentation, the last page is actually the guiding principles for the entire consolidated social service funding process that the City Council put together to create a little more guidance for agencies that are submitting applications. So this is kind of Council's priorities. If you look at what they've set across the board of things that they are very interested in seeing agencies provide in Urbana for Urbana residents. And so tying in with that, some of that does overlap with the priorities that are available that meet the needs for the community development block grant funds.
I have a question. Since we have Sheila here, what portion, roughly we had about $5,000, and that was split amongst these 3 entities?
Last year was $9,000.
Okay.
Or the current year we're in was $9,000. Of that, the community elements, the Roundhouse Youth Shelter, their total grant was actually $9,000. I want to say offhand. And I think it was 9,000. 3,000 of that was CDBG. The other 4,000 were city funds. So their grant was part city money as well as part CDBG money to make up the total allotment that they got for the Roundhouse Youth Shelter. And then they also received funding from the city's general fund for their Times Men's Shelter as well.
So how did you guys use those resources last year?
I can't really answer completely. I believe most of the issues was used either to leverage other grants. For example, Times Center probably has about 9 grants. Some of the money we used to.
Would you like to come forward? Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
Some of the funds are used to match other grants. For example, Times Center has a state grant, and we use those dollars to match state grant. We have the transitional program there. We also have the dorm side, so there's a total of 70 beds at Times Center. And for Roundhouse, the same is true. We've been very successful with using the funds for helping kids transition to adulthood. I say kids, but we serve homeless youth from 17 through 21 as well. So if the kids are under 17, the goal is for reunification with their families. But over 17, our focus is on self-sufficiency and independent living. And so we've been able to use some of those funds for moving kids into, into their own housing, many of which are pregnant or parenting.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Well, I'll entertain a motion for priorities. Does anyone want to change the priorities in any way? If not, then that would indicate a vote to continue the priorities as they are. And it's been stated that some of the other options are already covered by other sources
So this
of
would
funds.
be as on the bottom of page 2, the recommendations.
The recommendations I support are last year's, which is the last paragraph, last sentence of the second paragraph from the top.
Oh, from the top.
Mm-hmm. Second from the top, last sentence.
Yeah, but that's the same as the last sentence on the page.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I'd like to move that we recommend the priorities as following. Number 1, youth seniors. Number 2, homelessness. Number 3, special needs populations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further comment, questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Well, that exhausts our agenda for this evening. Do any of the commissioners have any other items you'd like to discuss this evening?
I do have something that I want to bring up. I received an email back from the executive director from the EIEDA, and he said that they're looking at several different housing projects. There's a housing project in Champaign that they're working on, and there may be a possible housing project here in Urbana. And they did close on the Eden Senior Living Project in Champaign. So they do have some projects that'll be coming up. I just wanted to let you know that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else? George?
Okay, so with regard to this mysterious unoccupied housing action, I just like to, do you people know anything more than what was in the newspaper? I can read the newspaper too, but the newspaper was not very
No, actually, the information in the newspaper was pretty much the information that I had and the information that I received from the city of Champaign. So I don't believe that there's anything more that, we could provide information
So
wise.
if this commission, if my colleagues were to join me in asking information as to how this came about and who was responsible for making the decisions, and in particular, whether any of our state representatives were involved or knew about it, would that be in order at this point, or do we need to actually, because of the Open Meeting Act, put that on the next meeting's agenda?
Didn't Kelly say she's already investigating that?
Yeah, that's on my list to do, is to contact IDA. I've been directed by our department head to contact them. She noted that article in the paper, and so I will be contacting IDA to find out more about this.
So what is IDA?
Illinois Housing Development Authority, they were listed in the article. Along, I think the governor was involved with this as well. So I was going to contact IDA to see about getting more information on this. And I can certainly, once I get that information, I can send an email out with all the with what I find, if you're interested in that.
Okay.
Well, it would interest me, for example, to know whether the mayor of our city knew about this program ahead of time.
I would highly doubt it. Even the city of Champaign didn't really know it was coming until it was announced. So I think as a resident of the state of Illinois, it's certainly within your purview to ask your own representative.
Okay.
What did you know about this? Was it discussed? Because obviously there were some political implications in the decision that was made by the state that we were not all privy to. So, as the city of Urbana, we would love to participate in the program, but we weren't selected. So we are, looking to, establish good relationships with the state and see if there's anything that we could do to encourage them to consider us in the future. And I think from the city standpoint, that's probably our best move. But if you're looking for, other information, I would definitely talk to your state representative in your area.
Okay. All right. I was just wondering if staff is comfortable with the knowledge of who wants to receive hard copy agendas and who does not. If you're not comfortable, you want to raise a hand, show of hands or anything?
Oh, no,
Do you
I'm
know?
fine. I'm the one mailing them out, so I'm fine.
Okay. With that, if there is no other business before us, meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for your participation.